Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you guys are doing great. So in this video, we are again going to talk about vectors. In the last video, we had some discussion about intersecting lines and the equations of the lines were basically in the vector form, right? So we know if it's a Cartesian form, you're just supposed to solve the equation simultaneously, but for vector lines situation was different and the lines were three-dimensional, so obviously it was a completely different thing. Anyways, we discussed this, and again we are going to talk about another topic from the same chapter, that is vectors. So let's get started. Okay, it's 9.6 scalar products. Now, one thing is certain. Basically, scalar is just a quantity that is without direction. But here we will be taking the scalar product. This is also called the dot product of two vectors. And then you will see how exactly things are for that case. Okay. So let's say we have two vectors. Let's say this is the first vector and here is the second vector, and the angle between the two vectors is theta. This is vector A, this is vector B, and this is the vertex. Okay. The dot product is defined as it's basically A dot B. This is how we denote the scalar product or the dot product, and it is equal to mod of A into mod of B into cos of theta. This is basically the magnitude of A, and then obviously this one is the magnitude of B, and this is the angle between the two lines or two vectors. So this is how we find out the dot product. Okay. Now this is one way of writing down the dot product. Another way of writing down the dot product is, imagine the same situation this way. So we have a vector A that has A1 as its x component, A2 as y component, and A3 as z component. And then we have another work vector that is B1, B2, and B3. And now you need to find out the dot product. So what is the difference? This time around, we don't have the angle between two vectors. We can still find A mod, B mod, but we can't find out the angle between the two vectors directly. So for this case, the dot product of vector A and B is considered as A dot B, and it is equal to the product of A1, B1. So we will multiply the X components, we will multiply the Y components, and we will multiply the Z components. So this is equal to A1, B1 plus A2, B2 plus A3, B3. So this is another way, another formula for finding out the dot product. Now, this totally depends upon the situation that which formula has to be used. It could be this formula, it could be the previous one, and it could be that we are using both the formulas to find out the value of theta. Okay, so situation could be any, we just need to act wisely at that point. Okay, all right, let's talk about some questions just so things make more sense. Example number 1 says, vectors OA and OB are given by OA, that is 3 minus 1 and 2, and OB, that is 6 minus 4 and minus 5. Calculate the scalar product OA dot OB. Okay, now this is the question, and now you need to think about it. So vectors OA and OB are given by OA equals 3 minus 1, 2. This is OA and this is OB. Calculate the scalar product OA dot OB. Okay. So as I've told you earlier as well, we need to think wisely. If I say that OA dot OB is equal to the magnitude of OA multiplied by the magnitude of OB into cos of theta, this would make no sense because in this question, I do not have the angle between the two vectors. Okay, so I will use the other approach and then find out the dot product. So OA dot OB is basically equal to the product of the x component with x component, y component with y component, and z component with z component. So 6 multiplied by 3 plus minus 1 multiplied by minus 4 plus 2 multiplied by minus 5. So this is going to give you 18 plus 4 minus 10, and this would be 12. So 12 is going to be the dot product of the two vectors. Okay. Example number 2 says the position vectors of points A and B relative to an origin O are given by A equals 2I plus Pj plus 3k and B is equal to 3I minus j plus pk, where p is a constant. Calculate A dot B. Okay. So A dot B is basically the dot product of vector A and vector B. Now this time around the form was not the column vector form, it's given as ijk. Still the idea is same, I'll multiply the I components with I, j with j, and k with k. This would be 2 multiplied by 3 plus p multiplied by minus 1 plus 3 multiplied by p, and upon simplification I would get 6 minus p plus 3p, and this would be 2p plus 6. This is going to be the answer. Okay. All right. Let's talk about another example here. Things would be a bit different. You would get the idea why exactly I was talking about it. Example number 3 says, find the angle between the two vectors. Find the angle between the two vectors, and the two vectors are 1, minus 1, and 1, and it's 2, 1, 4. Okay. So you have been asked to find out the angle between the two vectors, and this time around the question does not say to find out the dot product or stuff like that, but still we'll be doing that. Why? Because I know that if I will take the dot product of these two, I would get dot product is equal to the magnitude of the first one. So let's give them names. Let's say this is A and this is B. Okay. The dot product A dot B is basically the magnitude of A into magnitude of B cos theta. This is one formula. And then the second formula is that if I multiply the x with x, y with y, and z with z. So I have theta here. I can use the other formula to find out the dot product. I'll find out this, and then I am going to make theta the subject to find out the value of theta. So let's get started. A dot B is basically equal to 1 multiplied by 2 plus minus 1 multiplied by 1 plus 1 multiplied by 4, and this is going to give you 2 minus 1 plus 4, and this is basically 5. And if I talk about A mod, so A mod is basically the under root of 1 squared plus minus 1 squared plus 1 squared, and this is going to be root 3. And then the mod of B, or the magnitude of B, is basically 2 squared plus 1 squared plus 4 squared, and this is going to give you 4 plus 1 plus 16, and this is going to be root 21. So finally, after finding out everything, now I am in the position to use this formula. I can make cos theta the subject by doing this. A dot B divided by A mod into B mod is equal to cos of theta. So cos theta is equal to A dot B, that turned out to be 5, divided by mod A, that was root 3, into mod B, that was root 21. And now I can find out theta by taking cos inverse of the two quantities. So you guys can just use your calculators and press cos inverse 5 divided by root 3 multiplied by root 21, and finally we are going to get 50.95. So this thing is going to be 50.95, and we can write it as 51 degrees correct to 1 decimal place. Okay, this is advised. Every time the examiner is not going to specify, but in the beginning of the exam, in the instructions, it's clearly mentioned that for the angle answers, try giving your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So it was 50.95. Obviously, when I will try doing that, I would get 51.0, and this is going to be the answer. So this time around, the question was not about finding the dot product, but it was about finding the angle, and for that we had to find out the dot product. Okay, let's talk about another question now. This is basically a past paper question. And it basically says, find the value of P if the vectors Pi minus 3k and 2i plus j plus 5k are perpendicular. Okay. So it says find the value of P if the vectors Pi minus 3k and 2i plus j plus 5k are perpendicular. Okay. So we have been told that these two vectors are perpendicular and you need to find the value of P. What does this imply? If two vectors are perpendicular, this means, let's say if this is the first vector, this is going to be the second vector. So the angle between the two vectors is going to be 90 degrees. And when I will do cos 90, the value is going to be 0. Okay. Yes, this is basically the idea. So if we talk about the solution, we know that if we take the dot product is basically equal to, let's call it A and let's call this B. So A dot B is equal to A mod B mod into cos theta, and this part is 0. So A dot B is equal to 0. And how do I find A dot B now? By multiplying x with x and y with I. So A dot B is equal to 2 multiplied by P plus 0 multiplied by 1 plus 5 multiplied by minus 3, and this is equal to 0. So this would give you 2p minus 15 equals 0, and this would give you p equals 15 divided by 2. So this is going to be the answer. Now here again, the examiner did not specify that you need to find the dot product. Only some information was given that they're perpendicular. Even the information about angle was not given directly. You were just told that these are perpendicular. So for that, what we do is just know that when two lines are perpendicular, the dot product is equal to 0. Then find the dot product using the second formula, and then you would be able to make the unknown variable the subject. One last question. Question 4. Show that the vectors qi minus j plus k and I plus q plus 1 j plus k are perpendicular. Okay, so let's solve this. Now we need to prove that this vector and this vector, these two vectors are perpendicular. I will take the dot product, and q multiplied by 1 would give me q multiplied by 1 plus minus 1 multiplied by q plus 1. Now I am multiplying the second term with the second one, and then plus 1 multiplied by 1, and this is giving me q plus minus q minus 1 plus 1, minus q and q, 1 and minus 1 are cancelled, and this is giving me 0. So since the dot product has turned out to be 0, this implies that the cos theta was 0, and this means that theta was basically equal to 90 degrees. That is, the vectors are perpendicular. this is what we need to understand. Okay. Show that the vectors are perpendicular. Always remember when the question is about vectors and when you have been told that they are perpendicular, just know that you basically need to use the idea that dot product is equal to 0. You will find the dot product using the second formula, and once you have the dot product, you are just supposed to equate it to 0 and then just use simple algebra. Or if the question is about finding out some unknown variables, so equate it to 0 and then just make it subject, or if you need to prove, just find the dot product and then you would get 0 as the answer. So that is it. This is what we have discussed today. We had a discussion about dot products in this class. If you guys were not able to understand, you can just use the link in description to get yourselves enrolled, where you can directly ask the questions, or you can just comment in the comment section and I'll try answering you as soon as I can. So I hope that you guys like this video, and I'll see you guys in another video. Take care, all of you, and Allah Hafiz.